of the rights, not of everyone, but of Christians. And we are starting to see that happen right now in our country. Let me give you an example of that. You may have read my op-ed at Fox News a couple of weeks ago about this. But there was an organization, and is an organization in Texas, known as Christians Engaged. The purpose of this organization is not to support or oppose individual candidates, but to encourage Christians to pray for leaders, to encourage Christians to vote their biblical convictions about issues like the sanctity of life and religious liberty and the nation of Israel and so forth. Not oppose or support candidates, but encourage people to vote their biblical convictions. They had applied for a tax-exempt status from the IRS, 501c3, and they were denied that tax-exempt status by the IRS on this basis. The IRS sent a letter that has now become public that told Christians Engaged that even though you're not endorsing or opposing specific candidates, when you educate people to be pro-life, pro-religious liberty, pro-Israel, you are in effect telling them to vote Republican. And therefore, we are denying your tax-exempt status. In fact, if you think I'm making that up or exaggerating, let me tell you what the IRS said, and I'm quoting verbatim, quote, "Bible teaching is typically affiliated with the Republican Party and candidates, therefore disqualifying the Christians Engaged from a tax-exempt status." Can you believe that? They're saying not only are we not going to allow you to endorse candidates, I don't think you ought to endorse candidates anyway from the pulpit, but not only are we not going to allow you to do that, we're not going to allow you to advocate for any point of view, pro-Israel, pro-life, pro-religious liberty, that can be identified with not any political party, but with the Republican Party. And we are denying your tax-exempt status for that reason. They are expanding what kind of speech is not acceptable in the government's eyes. Now that's an organization, a parachurch organization, Christians Engaged. It's not hard to see at all how the next step for the IRS, and trust me, I know what I'm talking about here, that the next stop for the Internal Revenue Service is going to be not all churches, but conservative churches. That although they never break any of the IRS rules, they're going to say, if you teach pro-life, pro-religious liberty, pro-Israel, pro-traditional marriage, you are no longer tax exempt, and we are going to find the bejeebers out of you. That is not hard to see at all. It is beginning right now. And let me just say this as clearly as I know how to say it. The United States government has absolutely no business in meddling with what a church says, stands for, or believes. The government is to stay out of this pulpit. And I'm telling you today, with God as my witness, the United States government will never intimidate or silence the First Baptist Church of Dallas. We are going to continue to proclaim the pro-life position, the pro-traditional marriage position. We're going to talk about religious liberty. We're going to talk about God's blessing upon the nation of Israel. We're going to continue to talk about those things, not because they are Republican values, they are God's values. And that's what our duty is as a church.